good, everybody? You are listening to the Cephalopod, the DavyJonesLockerRoom.com podcast. My name is Sky, and buddy, we are so back. Okay, so the last week was a breath of fresh air for the Kraken, because I'm sure you remember what last week was like. I wasn't very happy, no one was very happy about the way that they were playing. So imagine my surprise and delight when they run up against the cream of the crop and also the New York Islanders of the Metropolitan, and they win 3 of 4. Pretty convincingly, in fact. Okay, one of them wasn't quite so convincing, as it was chaotic and crazy and fun, but still, that's pretty impressive, at least from my perspective. Part of it was that the Metropolitan teams that they were playing, most of them were going through some kind of problem. The Hurricanes, the first team that they played in a pretty convincing win, have a bit of a goalie problem, namely that they cannot play Frederik Andersen as he is out. That leaves them with Pyotr Kochetkov and Dustin Tokarski as their main goaltending duo, and right now, even for a team as good at cramming forechecking pressure and cramming shots on net, as hard as they do, as much as they do, it was genuinely impressive to watch the Kraken kick them up and down the ice and make them deserve it. They completely outchanced them. They completely outpossessed them. I mean, yeah, they didn't quite clean it up as much as I'd like to, but still, man, that's a crazy good game to start, especially coming off of what they were coming off of. That game was a great example of what this team needed to be in order to be long-term successful. Active on the back check, they were active on the forecheck. They did not play passive, and they took it to the Canes. That's a great way to start your week. But, then they had to go play the Islanders. Now here's the thing about the Islanders. The Islanders are not good. The Islanders are kind of mediocre at just about everything. They do not score for reasons that are beyond anyone's comprehension. And while they have decent goaltending, it's not nearly enough. It's not nearly to the standard, let's call it, of what we would consider an Islanders goaltender. And given what that is historically, maybe they're actually doing better than I think. But you know what? They absolutely took the Islanders to the woodshed. I mean, they got their shots off. They got more shots than the Kraken did, but they weren't nearly as dangerous as the Kraken were for most of the game. And then they just hammered shot after shot. They got amazing goals out of Ollie Bjorkstrand and Shane Wright. Excellent shots from Vince Dunn. Oh my god. Oh man, the Vince Dunn goal in that Islanders game, buddy. Oh my goodness. I can't show the film because otherwise the NHL is going to come down on me like the fist of God, but please go look up the 3-0 goal made by Vince Dunn. It is a stellar display of stick skill, of skating skill. The Islanders looked flummoxed the entire game, and I would say that is the poster child goal of that effort for New York. It was just across the board an excellent game for Seattle. And now we come to the game that they didn't win. They were playing New Jersey, which is understandable. New Jersey's a really good team. They sometimes give up stinkers, but that's not so often. It's like once every 4 or 5 games, and then they turn it right back on. That's the sign of a really good team, is that occasionally they lose. It feels like a fluke. Not really much you could do. These guys play at such a different level than most other teams in the league right now that it was going to be an uphill battle no matter what they did. And for the record, I think the Kraken did a very good job, all things considered. I know they weren't perfect. They definitely were not. They got massively outchanced by the Devils, but otherwise, especially given the, we'll call it, challenge that they put themselves in, I think they did about as well as they could. I would have loved for that game to go to OT so they could scrounge another point out of it, but it wasn't meant to be. And finally, we come to the most recent game they've played. The one that I just came out of watching. They played the New York Rangers. And buddy, if there was anything that could have stopped this team dead in its tracks, take that momentum that they had built over this little road trip that they've had, it was the Rangers. Because the Rangers need it. The Rangers have been miserable coming out of November and into December. They have looked absolutely out of sorts. They traded their captain. They gave a boatload of money to Igor Shesterkin. We'll be talking about the longer term implications of what they're doing later in the program. Long story short, the Rangers needed that game, and they played like it. They really did, and the Kraken looked a little out of sorts to start it, especially given that they got the unhappy news that they would be without Joey Daccord against the Rangers, a team that is still very talented at goal scoring. So the stars just seemed aligned for us to be coming to this space mostly to vent, right? Because it all looked like it was going so well, and then all this momentum just ground to a halt, and now they gotta play all these tough Eastern Conference teams with no momentum. What are they gonna do? And then something changed. Something changed in a big hurry. Started on the power play with Oliver Bjorkstrand. He got a power play goal in the second period very early on. Rangers dropped 2 more goals on them. And there's just a part of this where you're saying, okay, guess that's it. And then, later on in the period, Brandon Tanev, 14 minutes into the period. And then, not even a minute and a half later, Elliot Tolvanen. And then Oliver Bjorkstrand just before the period ends. Again! That line was flying out there. The Bjorkstrand line was not to be denied against the Rangers on Sunday night. They were unstoppable. Absolutely unstoppable. Vince Dunn, once again, contributed to the score sheet in a huge way. Shane Wright has 5 goals in his last 6 games. It looks like everything is suddenly coming alive for this team all at once. So that's good. That's good, right? We're back. They played all of these teams amazingly. But of course, they still have a lot of work to do. But man, just when I thought that this team was done for the year, just when I thought that we were going to have to start thinking about what the prospects were doing, just when I thought that we were going to be considering what this team would be like as a potential seller, they get right back into it. Now granted, losing some points against the Devils hurts. They desperately still need to get points if they want to be even mildly competitive in this Western Conference. And again, I've said this multiple times at this point, their upcoming schedule sucks. Their game tonight is not something I would wish on my worst enemy. The Florida Panthers are the team that makes you pay for every mistake that's ever happened to you. No one's going to accuse them of being purely opportunistic in the pure hockey sense, but they are still good at that, and that's something that the Kraken need to be ready for. Granted, the Florida Panthers still tend to do that thing where occasionally their goaltending just kind of fails them. I can't imagine what that's like. And they still have to play a very good team with league-leading points getters, league-leading goal scorers. That's to start. Then, right behind them, the Boston Bruins. Finish off the week, what do you get? Tampa? Oh, and just to make sure you were paying attention, just to make sure that this homestand is still painful for you, the Ottawa Senators finish everything up. You have to deal with a Tkachuk and Nick Cousins in one game. That's rough. Dealing with those 4 teams all in a row is agony. But the Kraken can do it. I watched them do it. I watched them do it at least 3 times over the last week, and you know what? They rose to the occasion. Especially for a team who has struggled so often and so frequently with these kind of things, quite like Seattle has. That's important. And I want to recognize the people who made that happen. Let's start. Starting, of course, with Shane Wright. Shane Wright has been a demon. Just a total demon this week. He is absolutely out of his mind. He's had a goal in all but one of the games that he played this week, and even then, he was rapidly coming into form. I am so happy with his play right now. I can't. It struggles. Words fail because he's just doing all the right things, and especially on the power play. That's the thing that this team has desperately needed, is someone who can finish on the power play. And if that's something that Shane Wright can do, especially given his ability to potentially take over games as like a possession guy, that's huge. That's something that this team is going to need way more of in the future, but if he can start these habits now, it'll pay dividends in the future. This team just comes alive when he's playing at his best. The next guy I want to give some real credit to is someone who hasn't scored goals, but he's been making these goals happen. It's Matty Beniers. Matty Beniers has 5 points in his last 4 games. He is taking over defensively. He is becoming the player that we all kind of hoped he would be coming out of that incredible Calder season. And while it's not quite to the preposterous level that it was, he's just kind of dang solid, just like really darn solid. He's been able to pick up some kind of assist through the last 5 games, at least once a night, and if not, he was still a positive possession player. I absolutely love how he's been playing so far. It's one of those things that I used to say back during that the one good season that they've had. When Matty Beniers has 2 points, there's almost a guarantee that you're going to win that game. And that is something that the Kraken still need from him right now, which is something they do need to work on. But given where they're at, these are habits to build on. Once again, Matty Beniers showing just how important he can be for this team when he starts scoring, and I could not be happier for him. As for the most individually impressive performance of the week, Vince Dunn's goal was really cool. Ollie Bjorkstrand's a machine. He's had at least 1 point in 4 of his last 5 games. He is, in my opinion, the model example of what a Kraken player should be, alongside guys like Brandon Tanev and Matty Beniers. He played one of the most impressive games of this schedule so far that I've seen against a very good team, even if the New York Rangers are struggling mightily to prove that all that talent means something. Ollie had 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists against an absolute wagon of a team, at least in terms of talent, at least in terms of paper. James Dolan will happily make sure that that is not true by the end of the year, don't you worry. But man, I could not be happier with how he played this week. Super impressed with him. And yeah, there's nothing else to say. He's an amazing player. He's an absolutely incredible player. A lot of this week is on his back. His whole line's back. Like, that whole line has been absolutely phenomenal, and they just punctuated it with an amazing game. An amazing game against the Rangers. Just amazing. Absolutely lights out as a team. Absolutely lights out game. Couldn't ask for better. The Maestro has once again crafted a masterpiece of a week. And hey, let's give it up for the rest of his line, Yanni Gord and Eli Tolvanen, who pitched in with various goals throughout the week. Absolutely killer group. I don't have anything other than effusive praise for that line right now. They are playing way above their pay grades. I think they should probably consider playing them a little more. But man, from where they are, they're just absolutely killing it. And that's what the Kraken need. Now, all that being said, again, I've said this over and over again. This team still has a lot of work to do. There is a lot here that requires the undivided attention of Kraken management and of Kraken coaching. Because what's upcoming is going to be even more painful than anything they just had to go through. We would not be having this conversation if they took even, like, most of the points they were supposed to get just a week ago against Anaheim and San Jose. This is a self-inflicted wound, something that the Kraken have done over and over and over again. If you remember the season where they went to the playoffs, do you remember that 22-23 season, the Kraken loved to get as close as possible to a guaranteed spot in the playoffs and then lose like 2 or 3 games in a row. which is not good and very frustrating. But that's unfortunately part of their DNA right now, is getting close, and they have to make that last leap. So the Kraken, who are starting to pull away from the hoi polloi, but are still kind of in that gray area, they need to pick a lane. They can be the better team sometimes, but you need to take these lessons, because otherwise we're going to be right back where we were, and I don't want to be back there. Do you remember what that was like? Do you remember last week's episode? I do. It was scary. I don't like feeling that way about the Kraken at all. All right, so we got the past figured out, and we got the future figured out. Now we need to talk about the present. Tonight's game, Florida Panthers, Seattle Kraken, in Seattle, beautiful Climate Pledge Arena. DJLR will have people up on level 9 as we always do. Definitely go on ahead and check that out. Now, what they need to do in order to beat the Panthers is be ready for a boat race. Because even when they're winning, they are winning in chaotic ways. Right now, they're an awful lot like the Hurricanes in that possession-wise, they're pretty good, but their goaltending they can't trust because Sergei Bobrovsky is out. They've got Spencer Knight and a certain Chris Driedger in net, so might be in their best interest to try and force them to make saves because, as the record has shown, they're not really good at it right now. But you gotta be ready, because they will happily get into boat races with you. They will bring you back to 1985. It will be so 80s. You will look down and you'll be wearing a white suit and your nose will be dripping with cocaine. So you must be ready. You kind of need to play almost the exact same game that you played against the New York Rangers, but you gotta play it even faster. And you cannot screw up. I really cannot overstate this. Screw-ups on the boards, screw-ups in passing, screw-ups in transition, turn right the other way with the Florida Panthers. They are opportunists in the extreme. Do not let them capitalize. Do not let them capitalize even once or twice, because that could just snowball into something insane. And you don't want that, because the Florida Panthers, they thrive on that. They don't care. So you have to keep up with them, and for the love of God, keep that puck security airtight. Lock that stuff down. Because then, if you do that, you can start testing their admittedly kind of weak goaltenders. And if they play Chris Driedger, you'd better be ready, because he's probably going to try and shut this team out hardcore. Because this is how it is always in the NHL. Whether or not I want it to be, it's not up to me. Lord knows we wouldn't be chasing the Edmonton Oilers for a wild card spot if I had any say in it. But yeah, this is going to be an important game tonight. Please do not screw this up. Either way, it all starts tonight against the Florida Panthers in beautiful CPA at 7. We will be there, so we hope you will be too. All right, so we're going to move away from the NHL team for a little bit to talk about the prospects. This is something I did over on Beneath the Frozen Sea. I'm going to try and do this here on the Cephalopod. There's plenty of great prospects in the system. Coachella is massively rebounding after kind of a slow start, and well, this happened the year before too, where they kind of started slow, but that was because the schedule wasn't really kind to them. So they're kind of rebounding into what people expected them to be, which is, again, a Western Conference contender. If you were at all worried about Jagger Firkus and his transition from junior to the AHL, I wouldn't be right now. He isn't leading the team in any particular category, but he is in the top 5 in most places. He's got 13 points in 21 games. He's got 5 goals. That's good for 5th on the team in goal scoring. And he is 4th on the team in points with 13 in that same stretch of time. Very nice to see that. But not to be outdone, Yanni Niemann and Eddie Saleh currently have 12 points in 21 and 19 games respectively. That's pretty good, especially considering at the pace that Eddie Saleh is going. If he has a good game or two, maybe he might be up there. Obviously, guys like Ryan Winterton are still the goal-scoring champions for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and Ryan Winterton is currently playing with the big boy clubs, so I think there's plenty of time for them to happily try and pull ahead whenever they want to. But that leaves those junior kids, and right now for the Seattle Kraken, it is a race between Carson Rehkopf and Berkeley Catton. And you probably want Berkeley Catton to come out ahead because he's currently in state and you can watch him. Carson Rehkopf is playing with the Brampton Steelheads. He's got 47 points in 27 games. Berkeley Catton is playing here in Spokane and has 47 points in 28 games. Rehkopf is currently up ahead in goals, but Berkeley Catton is far and away the better playmaker. I know who I think would be I know that I would love Berkeley Catton to be a major part of the Spokane Chiefs, potentially coming back from being kind of bad. I'm very happy that he has just completely changed the way that the Chiefs have played. They are looking so much better than they were, and man, I'm so happy he's here. People are, when you talk about the Chiefs in town, people are so much happier. Oh man. But still, excellent stuff from Rehkopf and Catton, playing really, really well. Keep up the good work, especially because Catton and Rehkopf are currently part of the camp roster for Team Canada over at the World Juniors, and it'll be really interesting to see if they manage to both stick around. They could be a huge part of Canada's attack coming into the tournament, especially since a bunch of kids who are pretty good are not going to be going to camp this year. Bennett Seneke's not going to be going, Tija Ginla's not going, Carter Yakemchuk and Zane Perek. All of these guys were guys I personally went through the highlights of and did the research on during last year's draft profiles. So I'll be real, I'm a little confused as to what Team Canada's up to. And in the WHL right now, at least on the blue line, the Kraken are lining up in a curious way. The main players you want to look for are Tyson Jugnoth, Caden Price, and Caden Hamill. They're on Kelowna, Everett, and Portland, and all of them are very, very good. They're currently sitting on 6 goals apiece, roughly around 20 assists, though Caden Hamill is slightly behind. He's more of a bruiser type who just so happens to have unlocked a little bit of scoring. They all have at least 20 points. They're all playing really well. Only Caden Price got picked, though, for the selection roster for the Canadian World Junior team. So we'll have to see how they shake out, but I don't know, man. Tyson Jugnoth's been really good for a while now. And given all the players that you're leaving behind, I don't know, maybe take a chance? Just once? Good luck to all of these players in their upcoming games, and for those prospects who are currently looking to potentially be part of the World Juniors, please make the team. The main squad has nothing for the Four Nations tournament, and I am jonesing for some international hockey. Anyway, outside of the Kraken, the league has really metastasized into something interesting. Everyone's a little peeved about how their season's going, except for, I don't know, maybe the Florida Panthers, but they kind of started kind of weird too, so who knows who's really happy anymore. But no one is quite as mad about how their season is going right now like the New York Rangers, and that's pretty impressive given that the New York Rangers are still pretty firmly in a playoff spot. Like, I don't understand why they're so mad. Well, okay, I do understand why they are mad because, frankly, their 5-on-5 play has just been brutal. They've just been absolutely mediocre when it comes to 5-on-5 play. Ever since they came back from a Western Conference road trip that they happened to be the Kraken on, they have been very rough. They came back to Manhattan on the 25th of November, just started losing game after game after game after game, lost to Calgary, lost to Edmonton, lost to Canes, lost to Philadelphia before they just started to rebound. We didn't really know what they were about yet. They just barely beat the Habs. They lost to the St. Louis Blues. They looked completely out of sorts, and it all got punctuated with losing 5-1 to the New Jersey Devils, which was a big part of them trading their captain in as acrimonious a fashion as possible, and it was punctuated again by losing 7-5 to the Seattle Kraken. So I'm excited to see what that causes James Dolan to do next. For those of you who don't know who James Dolan is, he is the owner of the New York Rangers, and if you want to know what he's about, just ask any Knicks fan in your life and give them about 25 seconds to cry, because they're probably going to need it. He is famous for meddling. He is famous for sticking his nose where it probably shouldn't be and making it all about him. He is famous for putting down edicts that they want to compete by any means possible, and that means jettisoning anything that is potentially in their way. And right now, and just by checking what's going on with them over at Natural Stat Trick, I'm gonna be real with you, I don't know if you can fix that by just jettisoning players. I think we've once again come to a time in which Peter Laviolette has one good season and then begins to promptly just lose steam over time. I don't know why he's like that, but as a coach, he just kind of has those half-lives. In general, I think that coaches tend to have these kind of half-lives throughout the league, and I almost wonder if it's a better idea. This is an interesting thought. Imagine, if you would, that you could actually have a coach on retainer, that you could potentially, swap coaches out every once in a while so that you had roughly the same message that you wanted to get across, like, hey, forecheck, or, hey, forecheck. You're saying the same thing, but just in a different way. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see how they turn out. That's also true of the team that started bad and got even worse over time. They are setting themselves up to rebuild, the Nashville Predators. The Kraken shut out the Predators in their first meeting. You might remember that from before Thanksgiving, and that game was quick, if that makes any sense. There wasn't really a whole lot of ambiguity on whether or not they were going to be able to hold that shutout, because, man, that team's bad. They spent so much money, and they are so bad. Like, they can't score. I know that some of you are cord cutters, and I know that some of you enjoy a little ESPN Plus action. If you're morbidly curious, I highly recommend this. Go watch the Nashville Predators. Just watch a period. They're spellbindingly bad. They'll do most of the right things, but then passes will start to go places that no one has ever even considered. The puck will just sort of float in space, never being attended to unless it's by the other team. It's fascinating just how poorly this has all gone for the Predators. And the crazy thing is, the Preds, at least under the hood, are okay. Okay, I'm gonna amend that. They're good at one thing. They are good at attempting shots. They're not so good at actually getting those shots on net, and most of the time, their shots really aren't all that dangerous, which is still, you can work with that base of we attempt a lot of shots. That's something you can work with, and they just can't. For whatever reason, they are just not built to succeed right now. It's really weird. Like, I really don't understand how they have struggled so much. I may actually bring on a Preds fan to the show just to really understand what's going on here. I'm really interested to see on where the rest of this goes for them, because man, it could get real bad for them. They could be like a top 3 draft pick kind of team. They already look like a top 3 kind of draft pick team. They're down with the Sharks and the Hawks. It's bad, man. It's real bad. Anyway, the Kraken will have plenty of time to consider what that might look like, because the next time they play the Preds, they will be playing them in March. Whereas we're out of Rangers games, so the only time they're ever going to interact again is with a trade, and given how that's going, maybe send in a list to Santa of Rangers you'd like to see in Deep Blue? Just saying. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. James Dolan has done so many dumber things. I promise you, he will force it. Alright, and that's all my show notes, so you know what? I think I'm gonna call it here. Thank you so much for listening, or watching, depending if you're on YouTube or Spotify, or Spotify YouTube, the conglomerate that inevitably takes over and ensures that you have some kind of content tube going directly into your gullet. Eat the slop. Eat the slop. If you liked it, go on ahead and subscribe to it however you get your podcasts. If you get them visually, go on ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube over at Davy Jones Locker Room on YouTube. And if you like this but didn't like my face or voice, why don't you go on ahead and check out our written content. You can find it over at DavyJonesLockerRoom.com, where we have up-to-date news of the Kraken, we have up-to-date rumors of the Kraken, we have a wonderful recap, preview, and game thread system. You can come in, enjoy the game, have fun with fans, post Zoidberg when we win, and of course, post Zoidberg when we win and just have a grand old time. And keep an eye out for Squid Pro Quo. It is going to be a more looser show than this one. I highly recommend it. It's got Glenn Dreyfus and Zane Begg. Those two are an absolute riot. Love them to death. You will love them too. Keep your eyes peeled. It'll be on YouTube and all relevant podcasting apps. And of course, you can find us on all major podcasting apps, depending on where you get your podcasts in audio format. That's all for this week. My name is Sky. Thank you once again for listening. Keep calm and post Zoidberg when we win. And as always, go Kraken.